determining cash discounts using ordinary dating methods. And we're going to start off by calculating the net cost after discounts. Cash discounts are offered as a means of encouraging quick payments. In effect, the seller is saying, "Pay me quickly and receive a discount." Businesses often borrow money for their day-to-day operation. Immediate cash payments from customers decreases the need for borrowing money. The cash discount is displayed on an invoice under terms. And here we have the terms listed, highlighted in blue, showing a 210N30. We're going to calculate what that cash discount is using ordinary dating method. Most cash discounts are done by using the ordinary dating method. And as we've seen on the terms in the invoice given in a slide or so back, we had 210N30. Sometimes it's listed as 210 net 30, and what that means is a 2% discount if that payment is made within 10 days. Otherwise, the net amount is due within 30 days of the invoice date. If no payment is made by the end of 30 days from the invoice date, then a penalty may be applied. And let's look at an example. We have an invoice amount of $285, terms of $315N30, and they're telling us that the payment will be made within 15 days. Since they're making it within the 15 days, they are eligible for the 3% discount indicated in the terms. To determine what that savings will be, or the reduction off from their invoice amount, we'll take 3% times the invoice amount of $285, giving us a savings of $8.55. The individual would reduce their invoice payment by $8.55. In this next example, they're asking us to determine the cash discount, an invoice amount of $485, including $15 for shipping. Terms are 210N30, and the payment is made within 10 days. In this particular problem, because they're giving this the details about shipping, we have to subtract the shipping off from the invoice amount. Discounts are only applied to the actual goods. Most businesses do not have control over shipping and handling costs, and so it's only on the items that have been purchased that the seller has control over a markup and is willing to reduce that markup amount with the terms given for a cash discount. Because they're paying within 10 days, they are eligible for the 2% discount. We need to subtract off, as I said, the $15 shipping from our invoice. So the merchandise that this invoice represents is $470. That is the value then that we will calculate our 2% discount. Taking $470 times 2% gives us a $9.40. This is the amount then that will be subtracted from the invoice amount because of the payment being made within the 10 days. To help us determine due dates, we can use the knuckle method, where your knuckles are the months of the year that have 31 days. The spaces between the knuckles are the months that have 30 days, with the exception of February, which has 28, or you can use a days of the year calendar to make that calculation. So let's determine whether cash discounts are earned. In this table, they're asking us to find the final discount date. The invoice date in this first example was June 30th. The terms are 3/15/60. So we have 15 days from the invoice date to still be eligible for a 3% discount. Calculating that using the days of the year calendar, since June 30th is the 181st day, we'll add 15. That gives us the 196th day, or translates into July 15th. The net payment date is 60 days from the invoice date. Either use the knuckle method or continue on using the days of the year method, and adding 60 onto our June 30th date translates into August 29th. In the next example, we have an invoice date of July 31. The terms are 2/15, so we have 15 days to be eligible for a 2% cash discount. Translating that into days of the year and adding 15 gives us August 15th. As long as payment is made by August 15th, the individual is eligible for the 2% discount. The invoice, however, is due in 20 days, and from July 31st, 20 days puts us at August 20th. In our next objective, we're going to look at using post-dating when calculating cash discounts. In ordinary dating method, the cash discount date and net payment date are both counted from the date of the invoice. Occasionally, an invoice is post-dated. This may be done to give the purchaser more time to take the cash discount on the invoice, or maybe to more closely fit the accounting practices of the seller. The seller places a date that is after the actual invoice date, sometimes labeled as of. Here we have an invoice that's dated June 30th, but has an as of in the terms July 10th. That's the date that we start determining our final discount date with regards to the discount of the terms. The term is listed as a 3% discount. If paid in 15 days, we use the as of date to calculate our final discount date. We'll add 15 days on July 10th, which gives us July 25th, and the net payment is an N60. Again, regardless of the invoice date, that's totally ignored when you see an as of in the terms. Adding 60 onto our July 10th gives us a net payment date of September 8th. We're going to look at one more type of cash discount. This is known as a sliding scale, and here's an example of one. What this translates into is giving the purchaser many options for getting the bill paid ahead of time. If paid within 10 days, they have a 3% discount. In the next 10 days, between 10 and 20 days, in other words, within 20 days, they are eligible for a 2% discount. If they miss that deadline, the next 10 days, which puts them at 30 days from the invoice date, they are eligible for a 1% discount. And finally, the N60 means the invoice amount is due within 60 days of the invoice date. Let's take a look at a couple practice problems. Here we're given the invoice amount, the date, and the terms are only listed as net 30. We're looking for the amount of discount. It's not applicable. No terms were given in regards to a discount. So the net amount is due, and if we continue reading on, it tells us that this invoice was paid on June 1, and we have shipping and insurance. So to calculate our total amount due, we will add the invoice amount and the shipping and insurance. In this next problem, we have an invoice amount, date, and the terms of 4/15. It's telling us that the invoice was paid on July 7th. That's 6 days from the invoice date, so they are eligible for the 4% discount. And that is found by taking 4% times the invoice amount. The total amount due is the invoice amount less the discount we just calculated for paying this invoice early, plus they have the details about shipping and insurance. We add that on to give us our total amount of payment for the eligibility of the cash discount. In this next problem, we're given an invoice amount, the date. The terms here is an example of that sliding scale that we saw a couple screens back. 5% discount if paid in 10 days, 2% if paid in 20, and the net is due in 30 days. The invoice was paid on July 26th. Well, 10 days would put us at July 18th. They paid it on the 26th. If we add 20 days onto July 8th, that'd be the 28th. They made the window of eligibility of a 2% cash discount. So taking 2% of the invoice amount gives us a savings or cash discount of $21.60. To calculate our total amount due, we are taking the invoice amount less the discount we just calculated, plus we have details about shipping and insurance which we add on to give us that total amount.